Welcome to the European Parliamentary Research Service podcasts.
In this podcast, we'll talk about the European Media Freedom Act and how it can help protect media pluralism and independence in the EU, especially in the light of some worrying current trends. Stay with us.
Leitmittel.
Why is freedom of the press so important in a democracy?
Well, there are several reasons, but let me give you just a few. A free press uncovers the truth, it holds power accountable, it informs voters and helps shape public opinion. Media freedom and pluralism are also fundamental rights enshrined in EU law.
On a global scale, the EU remains a stronghold for free and independent media. But media companies are confronted with falling revenues, increasing threats to media freedom and pluralism, the emergence of very large online platforms, and a patchwork of different national rules.
Furthermore, over the past 3 years, the rule of law reports prepared by the European Commission, as well as the Media Pluralism Monitor, have pointed at the increasing politicization of the media, poor protection of journalists in the face of increasing pressure and threats, obscure media ownership operations, and a lack of independence of media regulators in several EU countries. Julie Majacek heads the Brussels office of Reporters Without Borders.
Press freedom has seriously deteriorated in the EU in recent years. Journalists and media, they are increasingly subjected to many forms of intimidation and pressure, like verbal and physical violence, online harassment, judicial harassment, illegal surveillance, etc. It is absolutely key to protect the independence of information from private interest and political interference.
That's why in September 2022, the European Commission proposed a new set of rules to promote media pluralism and independence across the EU and ensure that all media, public and private, can operate easily across borders without pressure and taking into account the digital transformation of the sector. Let's listen to the European Commissioner for Values and Transparency, Vera Jourova, as she unveiled the proposal.
For the first time in the EU law, we are presenting safeguards to protect the editorial independence of the media. State should not interfere in editorial decisions. The financing of public service media should be transparent and predictable, not used as a pressure tool. We strongly believe that no journalist should be spied on for doing their work.
Following on her last remark, it's worth recalling the political crises that shook Greece, Poland, Hungary and Spain following revelations that political opposition, civil society and journalists had been targeted with hacking software.
Indeed, and let's not forget that back in July 2022, the European Commission took Hungary to the European Court of Justice for its disproportionate and discriminatory actions against Club Radio, one of a dwindling number of outlets critical of the current government.
So, what will the new rules change? Stay with us.
To begin with, the proposed Media Freedom Act will require EU countries to respect the editorial freedom of media outlets and improve the protection of sources. In addition, TV, radio and print channels will have to openly declare their owners and shareholders.
The Act will protect media outlets, journalists and their families from spyware being used against them. Public service media will be guaranteed with stable and adequate funding, safeguarding editorial independence and against political interference.
It also requires member states to assess the impact of media market concentrations on media pluralism and editorial independence, and sets new requirements for the allocation of state advertising to media to ensure it is transparent and non-discriminatory.
Building on the provisions of the current Digital Services Act, the new rules would also protect media content online, offering stronger safeguards against unjustified removal of media content produced according to professional standards by very large online platforms.
Users would also get the right to customize their media offer on connected TVs or iPads and be allowed to change the default settings to reflect their own preferences.
A new European watchdog will promote the effective application of these new media freedom rules and screen media concentrations so they do not hamper plurality. But what do media organizations have to say about it?
While most press and broadcasting organizations welcome the increased protection the Media Freedom Act would bring, some publishers' organizations are very wary of what they see as a centralization of media policy and have called on EU governments to not accept it. We spoke to the executive director of the European Publishers Council, Angela Mills-Wade.
We must guard against the spectre of statutory regulators originally established for licensed broadcasters having any powers or oversight over a free press. We'll be calling on legislators to ensure that the press remains subject only to editorial, self-regulatory codes of practice and the general laws, which of course can be challenged in court if necessary.
But the fate of the new act now lies in the hands of the European Parliament and EU countries, which need to discuss and agree on the European Commission's proposal.
Want to know more? Check out Tarja Laninen's full policy brief on the EPRS website or in our app.
This is a European Parliamentary Research Service podcast.
Thanks for listening.